Hi, welcome everybody to another MGH Cancer Center Zoom cast. I'm here today with Bob Herman, who's the director of our Cancer Center Protocol Office. Welcome, Bob. We're going to have a discussion today about what is a protocol office, how does the protocol office function, and why it's such an important component of what we do at the Cancer Center. In fact, I like to think of it as the glue for the Cancer Center. It keeps the Cancer Center running, and without the protocol office, we wouldn't really be able to be a cancer center. So welcome, Bob. And why don't you describe for us what your role is and what you do?
Good morning, Dave. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity to talk about one of my favorite topics. In my role as director of the protocol office, I've been here at MGH for over 20 years and overseeing this team, this amazing team of dedicated personnel that come in every day with a real sense of purpose, with the goal of really ensuring our patients' safety and making sure that their journey through their care on clinical trials goes as well as it possibly can. We really want to honor our patients' commitment to what they're doing here. It's a really noble purpose and cause, and we want to stand behind them. So the protocol office is a centralized office that provides support to investigators, clinical investigators here at MGH. In the Cancer Center. And Dave, as you know, we have over 200 faculty. Many are world thought leaders in what they're doing. And we're able to provide, really better than anybody else, such a wide variety of clinical trials, from everything to breast and lung cancer all the way down to rare diseases. And most importantly, our role that we play with industry in providing early phase trials, phase 1 trials, and even cutting edge trials like cellular therapy to our patients. And we want to do that as well as we can. Now, patients see and are very aware of, the research nurse and the clinical coordinator that works directly with them. But behind the scenes, there's a large cast of folks that pull us all together on a day-to-day basis and make it all possible. Our research nurses are very important. Our clinical research coordinators, they're again ensuring the patient's safety. They're doing assessments of patients, they're coordinating schedules, making sure that patients are coming in and out as fast as they can and getting their care here locally in Boston and even in the community. But behind that, we need to support those folks with IS support, financial support, contracting and legal support, education, patient education, education for our staff, special processing labs. So there's a whole host of people that work behind the scenes that really pull us together.
So give us an idea in a given year, how many trials and how many patients are being enrolled? Maybe the better question is how many patients are being enrolled? Where does that rank roughly in the country? I know that there's no hard and fast list that tells you how big one is, but give us an idea of where we rank roughly. And then we'll talk about the cost of all of that. So give us an idea of how big it is.
Sure. Dave, at any given point, we have over 400 open trials, and in any given year, we'll have over 600 trials open, from minimal risk studies to interventional trials for our patients. And, we're providing care for over thousands of patients, 3,000 to 4,000 patients a year. About 1,300 of those go on interventional clinical trials. And those numbers place us in the top 10 nationwide, and certainly within the top 3 for early drug development trials, for the latest cutting edge ones.
And that probably has to do with the fact we're in this great Boston, Cambridge biotech community. We're involved in a huge number of early phase clinical trials, roughly 500 or 600, right? Patients a year go on early phase clinical trials.
That's right. That's right. Those are the right numbers.
And sometimes those are the most difficult studies to do. They're often they carry a lot of risk for the patient because they're new drugs coming out of the lab for the first time, but they also have all sorts of bells and whistles, extra biopsies and tests and scans. New drug development's really hard because you have to make sure that not only is it effective, but is it safe? Does it affect the heart, the lungs, the kidneys, the liver, the brain in any specific way? So the monitoring is huge. Give us an idea of, so for that many patients being enrolled per year, roughly 3,000 overall, 1,300 on these intervention trials, What's the size of your office?
So we have about 250 people right now. 200 of those are patient-facing, research nurses, clinical research coordinators, and data managers, and the rest of the folks that are behind the scenes.
250. So that's a huge budget for anybody who runs a business or program. 250 full-time equivalents, as we call in the modern lingo, FTEs. So what's your annual budget, roughly?
Dave, this year going into fiscal year 21, we're about $27 million.
27 million.
Yeah.
And go ahead, finish your thought. I jumped there at that number.
Well, there's multiple areas of support that help keep this all going. And, about 1/3 of that income or that funding comes from our industry relationships with biotech and industry, pharma. Another third comes from grants, and another third comes from philanthropy. It's really important that we have that support.
And give us an idea why. I understand that the pharma-led companies will often pay for themselves, but sometimes they're not the most cutting edge. The most cutting edge are the ones that come out of the creativity and imagination of our wonderful investigators. And sometimes they're cobbling together funds to do a clinical trial. On average, how much does it cost just to do the data management of a clinical trial? So, not the PET scans, not the EKGs, the blood work, but just to do the data management of a clinical trial. How much does it cost on a per patient basis?
Just to cover the cost of the people working on the clinical trials, like the research nurses and the data managers, it's about $14,000 to $16,000 per patient is required just to be able to fund them.
And your average phase 1 or 2 study that to meet all the FDA requirements, how many patients does your average phase 1 or 2 study enroll to kind of answer the two questions that are most important? A, is it safe? And B, is it efficacious? So how many patients roughly?
So I lost you for a minute, Dave.
So sorry, we're having some bandwidth issues. So the question is how many patients are enrolled on a phase 1 study that in order to answer the question of whether it's A, safe, and B, is there a sense that it's working? Is it slowing down the cancer or shrinking the cancer?
Well, here at MGH, it could be as few as 2 to 4 patients. It depends on what's going on nationally. But we may have up to 6 patients or 8 patients on a phase 1 trial.
So if you're a patient, right, on a clinical trial, it's costing roughly about $15,000 just to manage that. And if that's what we call an investigator-initiated study, most of that's getting funded by either grants or philanthropy, but not the drug company, correct?
That's correct, yes.
So I often have patients who come to me and say, Dave, how come you guys can't just put together a 20-patient trial that studies new drug A for my cancer? I have a rare cancer. I want to study new drug A in my rare cancer. And I say to them, well, to do a 20-patient clinical trial, it's going to cost us $300,000-$400,000 just to do the data management. And they look at me kind of aghast, but that's just the facts, right?
That's right. And oftentimes, too, to complete the work in a more timely fashion will involve other centers as well. And we'll be the coordinating center here at MGH. We're, as a leader in our field, that often is the case.
And you can't cut corners at all because it's about patient safety. And the federal government actually does a really good job. They are very strict about the rules of enrolling patients on clinical trials. You're going through something now called an FDA audit. It's actually a badge of honor to go through FDA audits because it means that a company is trying to register a new drug through the FDA to get it approved. And then if they get to that point, the FDA goes back and actually audits the data. Give us an idea of what it's like to go through an FDA audit.
for our staff, it's probably the least enjoyable few weeks of each month when this comes up. But we're now audited very often because we have so many new interesting drugs that are really being fast-tracked through the FDA. They want to get these drugs to market as soon as possible. But it's very intense. It's important. They've got to ensure the patient's safety, and they can't miss a thing. They leave no stone uncovered, and we're very thoroughly audited. And I'm glad to say that we always do very well. And we're among the leaders in the nation with FDA audits and also our compliance.
So this year is a special year because of the pandemic. What happened during the COVID crisis, and have you recovered from that, and where do you see it all going?
Boy, Dave, it's in a good sense. Our staff, because they're working with cancer patients, were very well prepared to step in very quickly and help with COVID research. So when the pandemic hit, and we had to have accrual restrictions to cancer protocols, we were able to shift our workers to work on COVID research, which we're continuing now. But we lost quite a bit of patients during that time, and we rely heavily upon patients coming in and accruals and the money coming in from grants and philanthropy and also industry. So we took quite a big hit. But now things are ramping back up. We have a lot of patients that are on waiting lists and looking to get into our trials. But it certainly had a significant financial impact on our office.
So what kind of a deficit are you facing this year in the office?
We're looking at, our wishful thinking is $4 million, more realistically, probably close to $6 million.
Wow. And so we rely on philanthropy to make that happen. And the dollars really go to real treatments that are helping real patients in real time right now. I'm fond of saying that our mission here is to take the very best care of patients that we can, to leave the field better off than where we found it, and to teach the next generation of people coming up how to do those two things. And when you're a cancer patient, our obligation to you is to give you the best chance at the best case scenario. And we can't do that without clinical trials. We just can't do it. And we can't take care of the best. We can't do the best we can to take care of patients without the clinical trials office. We can't leave the field better off than how we found it if we're not innovating and doing clinical trials. And we certainly can't teach the next generation how to do those two things without the clinical trials office. So it's funny, as an investigator, 20 years ago when I started, I never really appreciated the value of the clinical trials office. But now in my role currently, we couldn't do our thing and be this wonderful cancer center without people like Bob Herman, but his entire team, the 200 plus individuals that are making it work every day. It really does serve the mission of the cancer center. So I am incredibly thankful to Bob and his entire team for all that they do behind the scenes to be the glue for our mission, really. Bob, there's something coming up that can help fund that deficit. It seems like a big number, but gosh, we see thousands of patients every year. There's, as you just said, 1,300 of them are going on intervention clinical trials, meaning we're giving new drugs to them in different ways. And 3,000 in total are going on intervention plus non-intervention clinical trials, meaning those kind of clinical trials where we draw your blood and look at your DNA, or look at, like Jennifer Temmel's group, looking at great new supportive care ideas. So people in the cancer center know it. So every dollar counts, and we as a community can come together. And one of the ways we can come together is in the Everyday Amazing Race that's going to take place in 2 weeks. So I hope everybody can sign up. Bob, if you had to get across one point to everybody from what you do, like when you're at a cocktail party or a backyard barbecue this summer with friends and family, and they say to you, like, what's the best part of your job? What's that one point you want to get across?
Boy, Dave, it really is an amazing privilege to be able to work with the colleagues that I work with. These are the next generation of physicians, nurses, people working in industry. And they come to work every day, again, like I said before, with an amazing dedication to the work we're doing because we care so much for our patients. And our patients are coming in and they're receiving the best care they possibly can, but they're also setting up the future for future generations of patients that will need this care. And we're winning this battle against cancer, and it takes all of these people from the beginning to the end to make it all work.
Well,
and I'm
thanks.
glad to.
You're the best. Thanks for everything you do and the wonderful team that you have. And we'll see you out there at the Everyday Amazing Race.
Thank you, Dave. See
All
you
right,
there.
take care.